Hiya Squishers and welcome to Squishmas Under the Stairs, where today it is day 21 and it's a Tuesday here in the UK and I'm going up all the time. It feels like a Friday. Woo! I'm feeling it today. I'm feeling it today. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you'd think I'd make myself a bit more respectable for the world, wouldn't you? But this is the reality. This is me under the stairs in the middle of the transition period. Except today, I'm going to be squishing late into the evening, which is a lot of fun. Because then I've got my yarn for my jumper. Yay! And talking about jumpers, I was going to talk to you about that today. Talk to you about that in a minute. But I wanted to show you some progress on my knits because I did a little bit of progress. Not a lot, and I stopped because I wanted to take a photograph to show you what they look like knit up. So, this is the Blue Sky Rainbow Kit, which is now in the shop. Whoop whoop! This one here, minus a couple because they're on my sofa. This is, my nail, look at that. Can you see my fingers? This squishy bundle I've knit up into one of my Travelling Happy Scrappy wrist warmers, which I will continue after I've shown you this, because then I can carry on going up. And this is so much fun to knit. There you go, all the colours lined up. This is the kind of configuration I chose. So I'll stick this in the lineup in the picture, just in case you like this one too. So this is what I've done so far, and what I'll do next is just choose any colour from the colours I've done so far, since this scrappy adventure has begun in earnest, and knit those. So I've got a record or a memento of the colours that I've done this year, because next year, whoop, I'm going to go wild. I've had so many ideas. I'm talking about so many ideas because I do not have another knit on the needles yet, but that's understandable. We're busy people. We're busy. Squishers, we're busy. It's not always about the fun, although we'd like to squeeze it in whenever we can, but I have not knit much. Not knit much, but what I wanted to talk to you about today, oh my gosh, my fire has just gone off. Oh my gosh, how did I not notice that? Stay on. Need some new batteries. I thought I'd talk to you about some of my jumper plans, because that's where my brain is. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was texture. Like, what do you do? What yarn do you choose? Where do you go? Like, obviously, we've all got stashes of squish, or you've got a small stash, you're building a stash, you've acquired a stash, you've got a stash that's kind of been dipping in and out of, but you're wondering, what do I make my jumper out of? Well, I've got some recommendations and I'd like to show you some today, because almost sang it from the Wizard of Oz then, because I'll just sing it in my brain because it's really fun to kind of have an idea of what these materials will feel like when you knit them up, because that's what I'm doing. I'm knitting up my fibre into a jumper, and I've decided to go for a jumper because it gives me a little bit more leeway on the elasticity of my top, because if I'm going to cut it, then if I use different fibres, I'll tell you in a second, different fibres, the elasticity of my piece will mean that it won't all sit the same. So I'll show you my slubby jump. Well, maybe my slubby jumper isn't a good example, but what I'll say is this. So one of the things I love about sock on sock or DK is that you get a real nice, dense, squishy texture. And it gives a lot of pull, it's got a lot of wear, it takes a lot of weight, and it hangs really nicely. Now, what you can do with this, which is what I do a lot of, is mix it with a bit of slub. Now, on its own, let's get some slub. This is Galaxy. It's probably been one of my top runners this last 6 months. I've just been obsessed with skyscapes. Galaxy. Fire's still on. On its own, slub is quite unassuming. So this is what that skein of slub looks like. Well, not that exact skein, because it's there. It's crocheted up like. So it has a really lovely, subtle texture to it. But the thing with slub is it doesn't have that woo, 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 that sock yarn has. Well, I'm talking broadly about sock yarn. I should be stating here that I exclusively use my own yarn, so I don't use any other yarn, so I'm talking mostly about my yarn, but it would relate if you're thinking about slub, so you know what I mean. So slub is wonderful for texture, but it hasn't got a nice bit of elasticity. So if you're knitting this with your sock, you need to be mindful that if you've got sections of it that are different, for example this one here, I brought some examples, I hope I got the right ones. like this here, this section with a bit of slub here has got almost a different type of stretch to it than the rest, and it would make for a different kind of texture when knitted up entirely. So slub for me is amazing for texture, and I talk about knitting for texture because I think it's just delightful, and the slub works beautifully on knitting and with crochet. And even though I've tried just knitting it, just crocheting it by itself, which I think is beautiful because it doesn't need, it's kind of the yarn that kind of doesn't need a lot doing with it. It's kind of beautiful by itself. It does a lot of work. It's got a lot of colour. It's got a lot of pop. You can blend it with other colours and it looks a bit like, oh, get the maintenance man out on that. Where's John? If you blend it with sock yarn, with crochet, it comes out a bit more like this. So this section here is sock yarn and slub. It's gone off. Sock yarn and slub together, which gives it a bit more of a stretch, which means it's more suited for things that are getting moved and worn. So slub on its own I wouldn't use for a jumper because it won't stretch. But sock together, why is it that I feel colder already? That's just weird. Sock and slub together make a great combo and also introduces some really nice texture. Now the other squish that I would recommend for texture is DK Boucle. DK Boucle! Because it's DK, but it's not. Like DK, the DK I use, or I make, is on the slimmer side. So it'd be 2 strands of sock yarn would equate to a strand of my DK. This is the boucle. It's like a bumper version of DK, except it's fuzzy like a teddy already. This is great for garments or for garments that you want that are really light and airy and don't really, like this has got a bit of stretch to it. Like if I show you the difference between this piece and this piece, like this is essentially the same pattern. This is my squishy dot maxed out. So there's that on the sock and a DK, and they've got it, same pattern in the boucle, and it's such a different finished fabric. So boucle is wonderful if you want to add a bit of bulk and a bit of coziness and a bit of that kind of texture to it. So I'm in lots of debates as to what this is the other one I was thinking of as well, because I didn't do the suri last year very much. I think because I went mad on slub. That's right, I went mad on slub. There you go, that's what happens. Mad on slub, drop something else. So I used in this project here and in my Catelet, don't tip over, this section here. Another yarn that I love using is suri silk. It's not too in my face like mohair. It's just like furry caterpillars in my eyes. I just can't take it. But it's got enough softness that it's unmistakably not just normal yarn. And knit up, all by itself, it's just this beautiful feathery lightweight texture. And when it's knit together with sock, have I got the other? Yes. Oh, we're doing well, squishers. You can add these little pops of colour. This is what I like doing with my suri, just adding little pops of colour, but it just adds like that fluffy kind of halo haze to it. So there we go. That's where my brain is today. I've been doing lots of squishing, so my brain has been like, oh. But what am I going to use for my jumper? Because I've got so many options, it's very hard to choose. So I'm thinking of that because I do have one skein of suri in pink, which is one of my favourite colours, on the shelf, and it is sunsetty. So I could go for a texture max out sweater. Like I could. Because I think a one piece, I'm going to start with a one piece, because if you've never seen me make a tube jumper before, you're going to want to know what the jumper looks like before I convince you to cut it open. You know, like open heart surgery on your knitting is quite traumatic if you've never done it before. And even if you have done it before, when you're doing it, you're just praying that you did a good job. So we'll do that in the next stage. But there we are. Thoughts from under the stairs today. Squish into the max. feels like a Friday. It's not, it's a Tuesday. The girls have got one more day left at school. And then, that's going to be it for school. Wow, here we are. There we are. That's it. So I'll be seeing you tomorrow with something else on my needles, fingers crossed. Yeah, more squishy chats. Why not? And I'll see you tomorrow, squishers. Bye.